Hi, everybody. Welcome to GW Center for Integrative Medicine. I'm your co-host, Dr. Kogan, CMO and Associate Professor of Medicine at GW. In the last 2 days or so, I've been bombarded by people sending me messages about melatonin kills after this study that I'm about to show you published in Circulation. It's American Heart Association connected use of melatonin with increased risk of heart failure. The study is completely incorrect. This is an associative study. And unfortunately, when media takes on such studies, they make it sensational, they make wrong conclusions, and public panic. So, if you're taking melatonin, A, don't panic. The study has nothing to do with you, most likely. B, if you're taking melatonin, it means that chances are you have some sleep difficulties, right? I mean, this is why most people take melatonin. There's one big exception, which we'll talk in a minute. So if you're taking melatonin for sleep, and your sleep is periodically disrupted, it's probably perfectly fine. Don't pay any attention to what I'm saying now or to the study for that matter. However, if you started to have sleep disruption continuously, if the sleep is progressively getting worse, or if sleep is associated with other symptoms, particularly symptoms related to fluid retention, symptoms related to shortness of breath, or what's called dyspnea upon exertion, when you're walking, you start getting short of breath. If you have symptoms like this, then I would like for you to pay attention to this talk. Why? Well, that brings us to the point number C. A lot of the studies that are not controlled, this is very important. This was not a controlled study. A lot of the studies that are not controlled tend to be an associative studies, meaning when you find something, when you find a conclusion, when you find a signal in the study, it's much more likely means that there is some effect within the population that was looked upon that is the real outcome and not the outcome that often stares at you. So what's happening with this study? And actually, before I give you a conclusion, let me show you the study itself. So this is the study. It's published, as I said, in Circulation. And it's pretty sizable. So it's 65,000 controls and 65,000 users of melatonin. Now, I said it's uncontrolled. It's what's called case controlled. So this was not a randomized study. They looked back at what people were doing and they simply case controlled them. This is not a very good control. It's not a randomization. And they did find substantially high risk of all kinds of issues. Okay. So and by the way, their conclusion was, okay, well, association between melatonin and all-cause mortality and all these other things. So what actually is happening? Well, what's happening is people who are starting to take melatonin in this cohort simply already had problems. They had problems that the people in the control group did not have. They had higher risk of, were developing heart failure, they were developing hypertension, they were developing coronary artery disease. And that is all of this condition associated with poor sleep. Now, what we don't know, whether the poor sleep was the primary problem to lead to heart failure or other things, possibly, but in reality, it's not necessarily the issue in itself. The issue in itself is the studies like this have to be interpreted very super, super carefully. And unfortunately, the way the results came in publication itself is very sensational and wrong, period. They should have been very clear that there's a clear association with the higher complexity of the patients in the active group. They should have said that maybe people who start taking melatonin should go check in with their provider to make sure there's nothing brewing, like you're getting a heart failure, your heart is not pumping well, and you should go check it out and treat the heart failure if you're developing it. This should have been the real conclusion. Instead, of course, the media took it as, oh my God, you take melatonin, you're gonna die soon. So no, you're taking melatonin, don't worry. Now, if you just started to get a lot of sleep problems, if you start getting those symptoms I mentioned, dyspnea of insertions, shortness of breath when you walk, go check out with your doctor. Make sure you're not having some problems. Make sure that what's going on underneath the surface with the sleep disruption is not a much, much bigger problem that you should be dealing with. And frankly, the last and not least, Melatonin doesn't work very well for chronic insomnia. You really should be taking an integrative approach to correct management of your sleep disturbances. However, we do use melatonin at very high dose for a couple of things. We use it for cancer, 20 milligrams or more we use for a cancer. We also use melatonin quite a bit in the situations where we are treating what's called jet lag or periodic insomnia. So those are the really good reasons to take melatonin. And of course, if you have any questions, let us know. If you are a patient and you're still concerned about this study, reach out. Otherwise, I hope that this helps you to understand that media does not know how to interpret scientific publications most of the time. Have a wonderful day. I hope this was helpful. Do subscribe, it helps the channel. And of course, Shabo would also appreciate if you subscribe so that we make more videos for you. And he enjoys being on the lab, being a good dog. All right, everybody, take care. Goodbye.